Alright gamers, welcome to the spooky season. Pumpkins, zombies, ghouls, and goblins galore! Well, actually I don't think goblins really popped up in this set, but Magic's bringing the spook with Duskmourn. And I went down to my local game store Gigabytes Cafe to play their pre-release last weekend. Here's how that went. And real quick before we dive into the opening, hit the bell and subscribe to the channel. 95% of viewers aren't subscribed yet, so let's get to 1,000 subscribers before MagicCon at the end of October. I'll do some sort of giveaway to celebrate. Yeah, so normally, I'd have a few minutes of me opening the kit, it'd be like a whole nice little video clip, but the audio and some of the visuals got corrupted. Whoopsies! So you just have to deal with my dulcet tones as we're going through the opening here. Don't worry, I've sped it up, and to be honest, we didn't pull anything show-stopping here, really just a very decent limited pool. The first rare we pull is a Leyline of the Void, and I could definitely see the logic for sideboarding it in limited. Makes Manifest Dread hurt way more, Delirium is way harder to get off the ground. If you're playing Sacrifice, it's a free enchantment in play once it's already done its job. Second rare is the Showcase Balustrade Worm that reads like every blue player's worst nightmare. Uncounterable, hasty threat that can come back for more later. But as much as I'm talking about the rares, we're pulling some pretty good commons and uncommons too. The Symbol Monkey, the Manador. Terramorphic is always nice to have, especially in a set that cares about card types in the graveyard. We just got two really good rares here. Valvagot's Onslaught is a make dudes at any time button, and the Fear of Missing Out helps us get extra combats in the late game while filling up the graveyard early and also drawing us some cards. The red-blue room we just got looks pretty good. Early game we can just use to kill something because we'll probably have at least 4 to 5 cards in hand, so it's always a pretty good removal spell. I don't think we'll ever want to use the other side though, because paying 5 to do nothing feels really bad and limited. For the rest of our rares we just got, Enduring Tenacity with the Fixing Land might actually be kind of viable. I don't think we have nearly enough resources to use the Lightning Leyline for any real use. Our pre-release promo is the Mythic Blue room, so making tokens could be nice, and we just lost our video source. That's fantastic. So on that sobering note and looking at the pulls, it seems pretty obvious the direction we need to go in. More than a few ways to ramp, the second combat red rare, an X green spell that only makes more guys as the game goes on, a green creature that needs at least 2 removal spells to properly get rid of. It is kind of a shame though. We got the black and red duel, but nothing really worth splashing for it. Tenacity would be nice, but the only life gain we really have is a 4-drop that needs to survive through combat, and the black 1-drops that do it on ETB. I don't think that's enough to justify it, especially if we need a second black source to get this thing out. We could definitely try splashing the blue mythic room we pulled though. Early game we get to double up on our best creature, late game we can start making massive value. Well, theoretically at least. Plus we have the blue-green common duel to at least help us get there. Alright, and we're back with the list. I don't know if this is going to be final or not, but we're probably going to be finagling with some little aspects throughout it. These are the things I cut from my initial build. I don't know if I can afford the 5-mana removal spell, or like the 4-drop, or the Thrilling, Discovery, Possibility, Side Grade. But kind of get the overall, we're playing red-green. Delirium is the goal. We happen to have the pre-release mirror room, so we're going to splash that in because we happen to get the Lakeside Shack as a not quite fetchable, but it's a dual land kind of in this format. Our goals is going to be overpower in the early game with some very effective 2-drops, have some removal with Betrayer's Bargain, Beastie Beatdown, and Trial of Agony, and then the late game transition into getting every basic out of our deck into play, getting back stuff like Balustrade Worm from the graveyard, Bedhead BC is a decent cycler that also is just a 5/6 menace, and then ideally we just finally resolve Valvagot's Onslaught for X's like, I don't know, 5 or a chunk to just get a bunch of stuff into play, big board that our opponents can't really deal with. So, we're going to go test this out real quick against Austin, and we'll be back with some results of that little pre-situation, or we just go to game 1 and round 1. We'll see. We'll figure it out. See you in a bit. So we jammed that quick game versus my work buddy Austin on Esper Flyers and proceeded to out-aggro him into the atmosphere. Turns out some early aggro and keeping just a 4/4 on board does the trick sometimes. From this game I do decide to cut out the blue aspect and just put in another of the 4/4 in a forest. It was definitely a bit of cope, and in hindsight, in limited especially, 7 mana should probably just be winning you the game and not be susceptible to a disenchant. But moving right along, we get into round 1 versus Warren on Simic. And man, Simic is definitely a little schnasty this set. You get to use all the Manifest ramp, and if you pull Zamone, you can start a stream of multiple large fellows. Just a heads up, the Fractal token is definitely a distraction, kill Zamone. But luckily we managed to get this match 2-0. Turns out ways to extra combats and a green creature that just reads, we made this to hate on blue, is pretty good into a deck that's half blue. But as it turns out, the games could have gone drastically different. We didn't see it in either of the tournament games, but the new equipment that gives +2/+2, Death Touch, and Lifelink is a limited monster if it gets to attach onto a Zamone Fractal token. Definitely a haymaker if you can find it. Round 2 versus Arthur on Abzan, and yes, I am super jealous he was able to jam in 3 colors for this pre-release. I love trying to go 3-color, but maybe it's better that I let other people try that shit because we end up going 2-0 against him. Game 1, we get to slam Valvagot's Onslaught for X's 2, and even at that low of a floor, 2 4/4s still put in massive work. Game 2 was a bit of a wash. He got mana screwed. 3 lands, but none of the right colors he needed. Round 3 versus Dylan on Boros. And honestly, the most I have to say about this game is some grade A Himalayan refined salt. First off, game was a clear as day 0-2 in his favor. He was playing what I can only describe as constructed limited Boros. Game 1, he shows off the white Overlord, Toby, the red pinhead reference, and enough removal to run Terminex out of business. Game 2, he shows that he has the 5/5 that O-rings something on each board, a second Toby, and the only white board wipe in the set. Definitely left that game tilted, but also felt like a what can you do sort of situation. Sometimes they just pull better than you. Round 4 versus Lee on Esper. We're pretty friendly, so we sit down, shoot the concept of, well, you just want to split it, we'll both get 3 packs. Lee responds with, nah, man, we fighting for it. Well, when in Rome, I guess. He's on Esper Flyers. The irony of starting today versus a friend on Esper Flyers and ending it against the list does not get past me. Game 1 starts off pretty solid in my favor with some very early aggro, but Lee manages to find enough removal to stave off my aggression and enough Flyers, especially the rare that just makes 3/1s that I can't deal with. Game 2, I managed to hit the ground running with the Symbol Monkey and some removal. With Symbols leading the charge, the gaggle of Gruul creatures are let loose upon him and wrap things up in like 5 minutes. Game 3 doesn't go nearly as quick, but it does slip into the same deal with me applying pressure, and Esper Flyers not finding enough removal in time to deal with the onslaught. So a 3-1 record to end the night with 4 packs, the opening of which I'll play over here. We end up pulling some pretty nice stuff. How do I feel about the set? I like it a lot, honestly. There's a lot of versatility with the rooms acting like sorcery effects that get to stick around, instead of normal enchantments having must-remove continuous effects. Manifest Dread is a very cool mechanic and a nice twist on Manifest given the graveyard synergy happening. And with the way it's handled, it never feels like a crazy downside. It almost feels like a draw 1 most of the time since it helps with deck thinning. Speaking of thinning, yeah, Delirium is overdone for these horror-themed sets, but you can't really fix what isn't broke. Flavor-wise, it's this delirium of being stuck in the haunted house, and gameplay-wise, it helps create interesting player decisions when it comes to deck building. Survival feels interesting, but I think it would have felt more relevant if the set had more vehicles or outright convoke synergy. Obviously, I understand that that breaks the cards a little bit more, but most of the time it feels like a win more for being able to survive combat. But with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this coverage of my Duskmourn pre-release. Don't forget to subscribe to get notified when I upload, and always remember to hold up some mana to flash out Valvagoth.